All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of the No Starving Artist podcast. Really excited to get into this episode here today. We have a fantastic guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself and what she does and is doing. So let's give a big round of applause. Ali, go ahead. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Ali Phillips. I am the founder and director of Bust a Move Dance. We run an international dance company for kids, teens, and adults with disabilities. It started in Brisbane, Australia, which is where I'm from, so you could probably hear the accent if you were not familiar. And I live in Toronto, Canada. So that's where the second branch and arm of the business is. And gosh, I grew up dancing. So as young as 3 years old in my local studio, which was just the safest space for me. And I was really able to cultivate and nurture this inner confidence and just passion that I had for dance and wanted to be a dancer from a very early age. And the universe just had different plans for me. When I was in high school, my sister started a community center that had an interest in special needs. Growing up, I had no interest in special needs. I didn't have any connection to it personally. It was just something that I fell into the world of with volunteering. And so at the age of 17, she actually asked me if I wanted to start a structured dance class for some of the people with disabilities who came to this monthly dance party. And really at 17, it was a sliding door moment. That's when everything changed because I wanted to be a dancer, but fell into this world of business and of accessibility and inclusion, and then decided to run with it. And so I grew up through running this business. And the point of me being on this podcast today is throughout the last 15 years, I've really had so many iterations of my leadership and running a business and managing people and running a company. And I founded a philosophy called Conscious Dance Leadership, which is what I would love to share more of today. But in a nutshell, that's a little bit about me.
That's amazing. That's seriously, it's really cool. And we have a little bit of overlap, not nearly to the extent of you, but so my mother has taught special needs in the education system my whole life. And I've taught a special needs once a week hip hop class for the past 5 years now. So that's why when you initially said that, before we started, she kind of introed to me a little bit, and that's why it was oh, that's sweet, because I don't know. I'm sure you understand. It's really hard not to it's one of my favorite classes. It's literally one of my favorite classes, and it I find that it energizes me. If I'm having a bad day, if I'm not feeling like I want to teach that day, the minute I walk through the door, it's this unspoken boost of energy. I don't know. Yeah. It's unexplainable.
Yeah, I could go off in a million different tangents with everything you just said there, because and this is the conscious dance leadership part, is the part of you that feels so energized by teaching people with disabilities. I'm curious as to what it is about teaching that class. I'm assuming, you can answer it. What is it that actually makes you be in your joy?
I've thought about this a lot because I feel like it's one of the reasons I like the class so much is it's almost like an incubator for my own teaching style. And I find myself just reflecting when I watch them on you worry-free they are. There's nothing that matters more to them in that moment than just what they're doing. They're so extremely present in class. And I find myself feeding off of that, and I'm I want that. I want to be able to just do whatever and not care about what anybody thinks.
Yeah. And the fact that you can tap into that means that you have access to it to be able to use in every other area of your life. I know you talk to a lot of comp dancers. I know I've watched your stuff, and I think that the world of competition dance, or even just the world of professional dance, we forget the presence. We forget just the passion and the joy. And I think because I've worked with this demographic of dancers for so long now, it's really what guides my work in the industry. It's like, how present can I be to what feels good for me? And so when, for instance, parents are having opinions, or when I'm worried that we're not going to, financially, maybe we're having a slow month or whatever, I come back to the joy that I feel when I'm just in that space, and dance is the thing that's bringing everybody together. And, I work with a lot of teachers and dance studio owners who are either starting inclusive classes at their space or growing them. And the worry and the fear around getting it wrong, when actually most of the time when they run these inclusive classes, they feel so embodied. They feel super excited. So there's so many lessons in there, but thank you for the acknowledgement. And
of course.
I wonder how many people are listening who have either thought about starting inclusive classes or do. And if anyone wants to talk to me about that, that's my wheelhouse.
I love it. So give me the, I guess it's not elevator anymore. It's like people use the term of like, you're in an Uber.
Yeah.
And
true.
somebody says, what do you do? And you say, let's go this route of conscious leadership. What is that? What's your 30-second kind of intro to what that means to you?
I think there's so many ways to approach having a career in the dance industry. It's not just being on tour anymore. And conscious dance leadership is a philosophy and a tool that you get to embody to get you closer to what your truth is, to what your path is in the dance industry that feels unique to you. And it's a series of tools, and essentially it's support. It's support in the way of resources, in group coaching, in community that can realign you with why you are here in the dance industry, what makes you stand out from the crowd, what it is that you get to work towards, no matter what is happening around you. It is taking a conscious approach to your business, leadership, lifestyle, career, because the world of dance is just so competitive.
Yeah. So was this something that you kind of like, I would assume that it was like ever evolving, like it progressed into this space of conscious leadership, right? So what was it kind of like, what were there things that happened early on in your career or throughout your career that kind of led you to make these decisions of like, okay, something's not gelling right here? Yes,
and I think I've always practiced conscious leadership. So pretty much, just a bit of a background, there is a concept called conscious leadership. And I learned about this through another program that I was in and fell in love with the book. If there are any dance leaders out there, read the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And I, being passionate about the dance industry, have taken that concept, added dance in there, and started utilizing and then creating my own philosophy and teachings around this idea of conscious leadership. Because it's not, I didn't coin the term, but I definitely have coined the term conscious dance leadership. And, when I moved from Brisbane to Toronto 6 years ago now, definitely, a turning point in my life. I'm like, do I still want to do BAM? Do I want to work for someone else? Is this the thing I'm going to do forever? Is there more out there? I loved teaching, but I wasn't sure about, the community I was working with. And there were all these questions that I couldn't find the answers to. And I was polling people left, right, and center. I was asking people for advice, and nothing really sat with me, which is such a beautiful lesson. Is you have the answers inside of you. And when we continuously poll other people and ask for their advice, it's never going to feel quite on the money. So part of conscious leadership is figuring out a way for you to trust the instinctive, emotional, guttural feelings in your body that are going to set you on the path that is only true for you.
As opposed to searching for someone else to give you that
or doing what everybody else is doing, or doing what you think is the right thing, or doing what is pressured of you from the industry, or doing what you've seen other people do that has equaled success. Like all of this external evidence versus the internal evidence of what feels good for you and what is going to lead you to the path that is going to create the most fulfillment for you.
Right. So 6 years ago, we come to Toronto. You're struggling with this decision, and then once you decide, okay, I'm doing this thing. What did that look like?
Well, fear, right? Like the fear of the unknown. Once again, I was working a full-time job, which was still in alignment with what I was doing. I ran programs in schools for kids, dance programs, and I loved it. And I was also doing BAM on the side, but that like nudging feeling of like, this is, I want more, or I want to go all in on me and all in on my passion, that like nudging feeling that really it feels a little bit of anxiety and worry that like, oh, you're not doing what you want to do, but the other side is really unknown and fearful. So just before you like jump off the edge into the unknown, it's fucking terrifying. But then as soon as you make the decision, the freedom that comes with that choice and the opportunities that then arise is exciting. And then it's about creating the structures, the routines, the habits, the community to then support you as you start the journey of entrepreneurship and freelancing. It's about the structures that you create around yourself.
What does that look like to you, or what did that look like to you? Because I mean, you did it. So that aspect of creating community, it's something that's been this kind of reoccurring theme in the past 3 conversations I've had. This idea that the sense of community within dance has sort of drifted. Yeah. And this idea of like individuality is a really big thing at the moment. So what did that look like for you to create that community?
Yeah. You have to seek it yourself. First of all, it's not going to come to you. You have to actively take action on it. So for me, luckily, being in the dance industry, I had other freelancers and independent contractors around me. So we would just literally work at cafes together as opposed to being in our homes, like just like basic kind of freelancer 101. But then it's seeking communities like group coaching programs or mentoring programs and putting yourself out there. So I'm going to be really honest, in the world of dance business coaching, there's not a lot out there. I'm not saying that there's not, but I've been in coaching spaces and there's not a lot out there, but I inserted myself into a coaching space where I was the only dance business coach. You kind of navigate that world, you learn those skills, and then you find other people that are kind of doing similar things to you and you message them on Instagram. You say, hey, I'm doing this. Are you also doing this? Do you want to get on a call? Do you want to have a coffee? You actively and intentionally have to seek it yourself. If you are sitting back and waiting for it to happen, it will happen. It will just take longer. It will, if it's in the cards for you, everything will happen, but it will just take a little bit longer and it won't feel as smooth. But you have to be active with it.
So it piques my interest, just this topic, because I feel like there's a lot of, as we're like talking, there's so many similarities to just like even right now I have a corporate job that I do marketing in, and I went to school for marketing, and so I've always drawn a lot of my approach, I guess, from like a traditional business sense. And it seems like you similarly do that as well, because a lot of dancers don't think like what where you're coming from. Where did that come from for you? Was there a part of your life before? Was it just instinctive?
Bit of both. I started BAM at 17 with no business experience, no entrepreneurial experience. But like I said, being at 17, starting a business kind of unintentionally, you find yourself in spaces. I remember being a part of an organization called the Foundation for Young Australians in Australia. And there was like an incubator program for young people around Australia doing cool things. And I learned a lot about business through that mentorship program that other people invited me to come and participate in, because I've always had natural leadership capabilities, but I've also just said yes to a lot of invitations. So it's a little bit of both. I think instinctively, I've always naturally had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit, but I think it's the saying yes to invitations along the way and being in spaces where people can support you and give you advice and help you along the way to really kind of build you up. And I've learned how to run a business just by doing it. Literally by doing it and failing and making mistakes and fucking up and then asking for help. And I think because at 17, I've always been pretty fearless. I think that is something that I see a lot of my clients and a lot of dancers struggle with, is just this worry, this anticipation, this anxiety about doing the damn thing. Whereas I'm the opposite. You know, if you take like a bow and arrow analogy, I'm someone that doesn't really take time to like pull the string back. I kind of just throw things at the wall and see what sticks. But I know a lot of dancers just pull it back and hold it and never do shit and hold it and wait for something to happen and wait and wait and wait. And so where the balance gets to be is like pulling it back, finding the aim and then going for it, as opposed to just throwing things. But that's my technique. I just do it. I jump into the deep end. I have a sink or swim approach. And I think that that's worked for me.
It's really, it's like, I feel like I'm not a very religious person, but I have had these like moments of intersecting ideas and concepts over the past few weeks that have been really tripping me out. And it's like the last conversation that I had with somebody, we were talking about this exact topic of like, because I'll just give you the exact situation. So he's created this on-demand program and filmed everything. Everything was done 6 months ago. And this idea of like, it's not perfect, it's not ready, it's not.
Totally.
And I just kept telling him like, you got to do it. Yeah. And he sent me he sent me like some preview clips, and he sent me like 4. And I texted him back and I said, I watched 30 seconds of one, and I'll get to the others, but post this.
Yeah.
Like, do it now.
Yeah.
And so I love the way that you're articulating this idea of like that bow and arrow analogy of like, you sometimes have to just go.
Just go for it. Go for it.
You used this word, accepting invitations a handful of times, which I really like that sort of verbiage. Do you have any sort of gauge as to when those invitations are incoming? Is there any sort of gauge that you have of like, this might not be in my realm of things? Or are you more in the sense of like, I'm going to say yes, and then we'll figure out if it doesn't work when we get there?
Okay, so that's a huge question. I subscribe to a philosophy called human design. And if not being religious, this may feel like really woo-woo for you. And it will sound really woo-woo for you, because I know a lot of people either do subscribe to these things, but at the end of the day, whatever works. And there may be people listening that also resonate. Essentially, what I love about human design, which is a combination of ancient and modern sciences, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, astrology, all these kind of things. The point I'm trying to make, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, is it makes the distinction between having an instinctive response to something, navigating your emotional wave to make a decision about something, and trusting your gut to make a decision, or like projecting off someone else and making decisions that way. Because I think we always struggle with, how do I make a decision? How do I know if it's the right decision for me? Right. And the way that human design really supported me is that, based on my design, and I have practiced this and it has worked for me, is that I'm a very instinctive person. I get this very primal, instinctive yes, no when an invitation comes my way. If I sleep on it, and I think about how I feel, sometimes I'll make the wrong decision for me, versus if it's like a guttural kind of yes, no, excited, not excited feeling in the moment. So what I would say is, there's not going to be a one size fits all for everybody as to how to make decisions. To answer your question simply, I'm kind of, at this stage, I'm like, fuck it, let's just go for it, and we'll make a mistake and it'll either work or it doesn't. I just think because I've made so many independent choices since being 17, I now have a better radar, and now and you know, even having really strong values, I'm able to filter things through my values. Is this going to work for me? Is this not going to work? I also have, going back to the community, I have people that I can be like, hey, instinctively this is feeling really good for me. Like, for instance, I want to redo my website. And that feels really good for me. And my business coach was like, what the fuck? Like, absolutely not right now. We are in foundation mode. I'm building a license for BAM. And so sometimes like my instinct will be like, yes, yes, yes. And then I will ask my coach, and she'll be like, are you joking? Like, that is really not what we should be focusing on right now. Because I'm a visionary. I'm a big picture thinker. I want to throw things at the wall. So it's a combination of all of them. And I do have a really strong connection to my decision-making system that I just continuously exercise and nurture.
There's so many things. But
I know.
I want to catch this one. I want to catch this one thing because I think that this is something it's piquing my interest now. So, you said you have a business coach.
I do.
Is that someone you pay for? Is that, give me the scoop
Yes.
on kind of when did you decide to like, because these are things that like I myself have thought about doing, but they're so kind of to a point you made earlier, they're so not common in dance spaces that it almost feels like it wouldn't be helpful.
I know, which is why I'm so passionate about coaching. And I have one-on-one clients, from dancers to choreographers to artists. I have a group coaching program. I'm really, this is the world that I'm in. This is where conscious dance leadership is supporting dancers, dance professionals, artists, entrepreneurs. Essentially, I felt, once again, like I fell into the world of disability, I fell into the world of coaching as well, and found myself in a 10-week accelerator program based off a conversation that I had with a random person because I was actually wanting to have a conversation with them about something else. So this is my advice to anybody, is just like lean into every conversation you have. Something will come from everything. Anyway, found myself in the world of coaching. And yeah, it's a bit cult-like. It's a bit weird, but also the dance industry is hella cult-like. So watch the judgment as the dance industry being like, oh, we don't do that. It's like, the dance industry is a fucking cult, and I'm in it, and I love it. But let's just watch the judgment of other industries. And it was just a space where I was like, felt supportive, and I paid for it. It was fucking terrifying. It was $7,000. I'd never invested that much in my entire life. My goal was to double it, and in 10 weeks I made $40K. In 10 weeks I made $40,000 from a $7,000 investment because of the tools that they gave me, which I then almost like shattered this belief system. And I love the name of your podcast. I shattered this belief system that I couldn't make money. And I was like, well, now this is what I want to do. This is what I want to support other dancers and entrepreneurs with. And so from that program, I went into another coaching container, which was a group coaching container. And from there was like, oh, I think I want more personal one-on-one support because, on the call with 50 other people or even 10 people, you only have a limited amount of time. And I was like, no, I am worth actually being supported by one person with all the attention on me. And so I've invested in a couple of one-on-one coaches. And I use the word investment so intentionally because dancers, yes, we spend money on classes, we spend money on headshots, but when you shift that language to being investing, you then are seeing yourself as a business. You are then creating longevity and sustainability and scalability for your career. And so, yeah, it's changed my life having coaches.
So another, piggybacking off something in the middle of that. So you brought up the name of the podcast, and then you've touched on this a little bit. So I really am interested in what your thoughts are. So this is another reoccurring thing. I think it's just going to become like a reoccurring question that I ask people is there's this really strong idea that like, if you're not a starving artist, then it somehow takes away from your credibility or your authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of dancers have struggled with this. I know I have struggled with it in my life between the balance of like my normal job and my dance job, and feeling like if my normal job becomes too highlighted, then I somehow lose credibility in this other aspect of my life. So it's a two-part question. One is, have you ever felt that way? And two, how did you overcome it? And if you haven't, how would you advise dancers to kind of overcome this idea that you don't have to be a starving artist to be authentic and credible?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes, I felt it. I think everybody has. I think I'm unique in that I started this business very young. So I almost like grew up through running the business. And I've always had this instinctive knowing that I'm doing cool shit and that I'm doing important, influential shit. My question to everyone who has this belief system is, what is the impact that you want your art to make? Whether you are an art, like a performer, a teacher, a choreographer, a creative director, an event coordinator, an advocate, anyone that's in, whatever it is. What is the impact that you want to make? Because we all do it because we want people to feel things or to experience things. If you are doing, if you are doing your dance career for you, it is only going to go so far. It is only going to go so far. When you focus less on like what you gain from your dance career and more what your dance career can give and to serve other people, then the starving artist mentality cannot exist, because money, creating abundance and having more money, which means that you can create more work, which means you can impact more people, which is what I'm here for. I can only impact a certain amount of people if I only have a certain amount of money. So the way that I see it is the more money I make, the more impact I can have. And therefore, it's not for me to feel like I'm being greedy or that it's not about my artistry. It actually is the thing that fuels my artistry, fuels my creativity. If I am filling my cup, then I can pour from the overflow. If you're half empty or even half full, whatever way you see it, you're going to give from depletion. And so this idea of like having a starving artist mentality, and then that's negating, I don't know, the credibility of your work, it just doesn't make sense to me, because I'm here to serve. I'm here to give impact. And if you're a starving artist, you can't do that. I believe. I truly believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I really, really like the way that you're just articulating a lot of these concepts, because I think it's just, I don't know, I think it's a missing link, you know. It's this missing link between dancers and what they could be versus what they are, and I see it time and time again, and it's almost been a frustrating point for me where like I have felt like I haven't been able to find people within the dance community, or it's sparingly, that share this mindset of like wanting to progress. It just, I don't know. It's been something I've observed being in dance for the time that I have, that a lot of people, whether they enjoy it or they're afraid of the other side, are very complacent, and they're very okay with being in that kind of complacent space. And so I love the way that you're kind of like articulating these concepts.
Thank you. I think the complacency sometimes is fear. And when I trace it back to, let's say, studio life, you know, there's fear. Are you going to be in the front? Are you going to be the best? Are you going to get the top mark? Are you going to get the solo? So there's all this fear around, I need to do this. I need to be the best. And there's an attachment to success and to overachievement. And what that breeds is like, well, I need to be the best. It's all about me. How can I be? This is the thing. If your dance career is about you, it's a very selfish, entitled way of seeing it. Your dance business is not about you. It may have been when you were trying to gain control of being the best and being the person that everyone claps for, and all the accolades and all. I understand it. I'm a high achiever. I'm addicted to success. I was rewarded for success, and I have had to rewire and reprogram myself to making my dance career not about me. Because if it is about me, like I said, you're only going to go so far. So I think that when you move through the fear around not being good enough, because that's what it is for me, or the fear of failure, or even the fear of success, when you move through those patterns, then you get connected back to like what you're here to do and what your dance career is for, and then you get reconnected with your joy and your fulfillment, and then the business part just gets to kind of be something that you're in automatically, because you have self-belief in what you're actually putting out. So I feel you. I feel you. I think the work that I do with conscious dance leadership is we go back into the basement. We go back into the patterns of like, well, how were you taught? What did you hear growing up? And I work with a lot of students that, you know, had really toxic and traumatic dance upbringings. And we have to clear all that out. And we have to come back to who we are now. We have to reparent our inner child, and we have to move from the place of worthiness and self-belief in order to like rebuild our love for the dance industry and our love for our dance careers. That shit takes time and accountability.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard too because I feel like a lot of teachers, I mean, even just speaking for myself, I started teaching really young. Similarly to you, I started teaching, and that was my first real entryway into dance. I didn't grow up dancing, so I just kind of jumped in at 16,
Wow.
teaching in a competitive space, and probably should not have been entrusted with that sort of position because I didn't really know what I was doing. And I think that happens a lot at any age because there really is no sort of like training that goes into becoming a dance teacher. You know, most of the time it's just you. So I think I've spoken before about I think a lot of times this comes from it's a place of ignorance, but I don't think it's an intentional ignorance, right? It's a lot of teachers make mistakes because they just don't know any better.
Yeah, they're a product of the system.
And then you learn later on. And then for me, it was this huge kind of like moment of like, wow, like this, what I'm doing is working in the short term, but it's not working for these dancers long term. It's not really helping these dancers long term. So how do you, speaking to teachers, how do we enter a classroom and create a space where those feelings that you spoke about of like these, because it's true, these dancers, like they live and breathe, am I going to be in the front? Am I going to get this placement? Am I going to get this? And, are people going to clap when I do this moment in my solo? How do we as teachers and mentors counteract that? Can we counteract that?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It is, you have to do your inner work as the teacher. You have to know what your patterns are. You have to know how to navigate your emotions. There is the power of self-awareness and the inner work is monumental to being an embodied and conscious teacher. Otherwise, you are projecting everything onto your students. You must do your inner work. How do you see yourself? How do you navigate fear? How do you navigate disappointment? How do you self-regulate? How do you release emotions? How do you how do you understand which part of yourself is talking right now? Are you talking from the wounded child or the wounded, failed dancer? Or are you talking from a leader and from a teacher that wants to inspire? Like, you as the teacher must be self-aware. You must understand who you are to give space for the students to understand who they are, to navigate their emotions, to celebrate their wins. Oh, it's just, yes is the answer to that. And this is the work I'm so passionate about because people hire me to support them working with people with disabilities. And that's where Conscious Dance Leadership and BAM is the dance company, intersect, is that people hire me to support them with their classes with kids with disabilities. And it's all coaching because it's all like, it's how you see yourself. It's how you see disability. It's how you were taught growing up. It's how you see the fear around parents coming in and worrying that you're giving too much attention to the kid with a disability. And then it has nothing to do. I mean, that's a lie. It does have something to do with the student, but 99.999% of it is like how you see yourself and how you conduct yourself as a teacher. Who you are is how you teach. And so you're not a teacher and then you leave the studio and you're not a teacher anymore. Or you walk into you walk in and be a teacher and that's not who you are as a human being. It's all connected. It's all connected. You are the same person with all of your limiting beliefs, all of your patterned behavior, all of your worries, all of your struggles. And just, you being accountable to that is how we break that pattern.
There you have it. That's self-reflective.
Yeah.
No, I think it's I think it's absolutely true because I think I know for me, like when I was younger, a lot of what I did was very ego driven. It was very much what am I getting out of this situation? Is my choreography going to reflect well when it hits the stage? It really had nothing to do with how the dancers felt about it. And I think that was the biggest shift for me over the past decade of teaching is like, that ego has to subside. And I think somebody somewhere along the lines worded it as like, that's why I think a lot of convention teachers sometimes struggle, is because they're still trying to be someone themselves. And so when you're in that place of like, it's really hard to be a teacher and a mentor when you're still trying to be whatever it is you're trying to be.
Totally.
You know, it's when you kind of like pull away from that and you're willing to be present in there for this group at this moment that things start to shift. So I love kind of your approach to things, and this approach of like this conscious dance leadership, because I think it's really, really important. And I think we're seeing the effects of it so much so right now of dancers just feeling, I mean, I'm sure you get it so much in person. I get it online through DMs of you know, younger kids that'll message me, and it's like the most heartbreaking messages of like, you know, oh, I didn't place this weekend, and I really, really want to place, like, what can I do? And it's like, I don't know, it hurts to feel like that's where we're at in dancing, where like the measure of success for a lot of these younger dancers is not necessarily how they felt about their dancing. It's how other people felt about their dancing.
I know. I mean, I don't work so much in like the comp world. I would love to coach younger dancers. It's definitely something that is on my in the next couple of years. I work specifically with studio owners and independent contracted freelance artists. But it's, you know, the other thing is that being able to, I don't know, I think that the dance industry also is like infiltrated by parents. And I think that part of conscious dance leadership is creating the strongest trust muscle that you have to make decisions that you feel like are aligned for you, that feel good for you, and that you can then create safety for the students. It's this interesting then dichotomy of like having the parents also have impact, and the amount of studios that I work with that we're not even talking about disability, we're talking about the parents who have a say in what their child. And so even yesterday I was in a coaching session with a dance studio, and we got really clear on the hierarchy of opinions. Whose opinion matters first? Them, the directors, and the teachers. Then whose opinion matters next is the kids, and then whose opinion matters next is the parents. And I think when teams are on the same page, and when studio owners back their teachers, and then the teachers are then supporting their students and having conversations with their students, and the teachers are self-aware enough to set boundaries with parents and to set boundaries with kids and to set boundaries with themselves, we then end up creating cultures of dance studios that are safer, that are more open, that are not as this like toxic, like frustrated, anxiety, fear-driven spaces. And then you don't have those. And then I think over time, when we start to really create these shifts in dance studios, we won't have so many of those messages, because dance teachers will start to have these conversations around celebration and self-worthiness and self-efficacy and you know, working hard and what mistakes mean, and I think a lot of the disappointment that I've also heard comes from like disappointing parents and disappointing family members, and that shit is fucking wild to me. So yeah, I think the more self-awareness dance studio owners have, because it has to trickle down from the top. And I know a lot of dance teachers who are trying to create change in their organizations, and the dance studio owner won't have a bar of it. And that's a boundary that I've set as a coach. Right. If your dance studio owner is not on board with this, they're not in the meetings, they're not also reflecting, I'm not doing work with you, because it needs to trickle down from the top. But if the dance studio owner is on board and they're in the meetings and they're self-reflective, it breeds this openness, curiosity, this commitment to learning, no defensiveness or pointing the finger, self-accountability, 100% responsibility. And I think that's how we create change in the industry.
Do you think there's a level of open communication between teachers, directors, and parents that's necessary? And where does that line get drawn? Because I think one thing that I've noticed, it's been really interesting, this like journey that I've taken the past 6 months, because I've attracted the attention of a lot of dance parents, which is something that was new to me. And I feel like what I've been able to dissect from a lot of conversations with them is this concept that they just don't know. A lot of times they don't know much about dance, and so their frustrations or their opinions or their needs and wants come from this place of not really understanding what's happening, and a lot of times those doors get closed to them when they when they try to have those conversations with teachers or directors. Those doors get closed. So do you think that there is a necessary line of communication that has to be there between the top and the parents?
I think so. I think what's coming to my mind is, as the studio owner, you get really clear on what your studio values. And some studios, like I worked with a studio yesterday, and we got really clear that their value is to make better humans. And we just do that through dance. So if the studio values like excellence by any necessary means, that's going to look different as it trickles down to the parents, because their focus, number one, is like making excellent dancers no matter what it costs. And that's probably where like the parents kind of getting brushed out of the side, maybe a little bit of that might provide some friction. I think if you value making better humans at your studio and you just happen to do it through the vehicle of dance, then I think parents would be more open to that, more open to feedback, when they know that the intention of the dance studio is to actually create a holistic approach to dance. I think it's just, the dance industry is vast, and I think, the dance industry is vast, and I think it depends on what the value is of the studio. And when you start to have more self-aware, conscious, embodied, intentional dance studio owners, which trickles down to teaching staff, then conversations with parents just are they're just easy. And when I tell you, and I told this to a studio the other day, I don't have parent issues. I do not have parent issues at all. They respect the fuck out of what we do. They respect my expectations. They respect my boundaries. They reply to emails on time. There's no gossip. There's no talking back. There's no passive aggressiveness, because I value myself. I've set the boundaries. I've set the expectations. You either like that at my studio or you don't.
Do you think studios struggle with that? Because I feel like that I've seen that, where studios struggle with like the initial setting of boundaries, expectations, and guidelines. So then I think that's where it comes from, is then the parents go this whole dance season not really clear on what
Absolutely.
any of that
And
is.
this comes back to the fact that dance studio owners, most often than not, are teachers that just have worked their way up the studio, that now are just owning the studios. It is the culture. It is the actual culture and the foundation of the dance industry in general. That we have, like, you've been a dancer at your studio for 20 years, 30 years, you were the teacher, and now you're the dance studio owner. You have zero self-awareness. You have zero business awareness. You have zero understanding of how to do entrepreneurship. And now you have no idea how to set boundaries in your life, how to create a proper business plan, how to create actual expectations, onboarding, enrollments. Like, you have no idea. So no wonder the parents have no fucking clue. You know what I mean? And so our dance studio owners are the ones that I'm not necessarily targeting, but I try and speak to, because I'm like, you're the ones up at night with so much anxiety that you have shit parents. But actually, what is your part in it? Did you give them any information? Have you set any expectations? Are you just letting them kind of like walk all over you? Are you like being passive aggressive back? Like, where is the accountability? And then it just feeds this toxicity from the top down.
Right. Do you think that there's any sort of like, let me just ask a simple question first. Do you think there's not enough barriers to the opening of a dance studio?
I don't know, actually. Do I think there are too many or not enough? Not enough barriers to opening a dance studio.
In other words, do you think it's too easy to just open up a dance studio and start teaching?
I don't know the answer to that. I guess the thing that's coming up in my mind is that, like, if you have the intention of creating a holistic, conscious, embodied, intentional studio, then you get to go for it, because I know so many people out there who do. I personally think that the criteria to being, not necessarily, maybe I misunderstood, but maybe the criteria to stepping into the leadership position and managing people, there probably should be a certification for sure. You know what I mean? As opposed to just like creating a space. Like, if you are, I have a high school degree as well. So I'm a teacher by I guess like education. And fuck, I had to go through university to get that shit, right? Like, I had to work my butt off to become a high school teacher. And exactly what you were saying, going back to the beginning of the conversation, it's like, you need nothing to be a dance studio owner. You need nothing to be a dancer. And that shit, So in terms of, I don't know if that answers your question, but that is so I reckon there absolutely gets to be some level of certification, or even just more awareness or encouragement of group coaching programs, so that you can dive into your professional development, learn about who you are, what type of leader you want to be, what is your management style, or even understand what it means to delegate to other people. I definitely think there's a gap there, which is what I'm trying to fill.
So as we enter this sort of like last leg, this last 15 minutes here, what I really would love to give you the space to provide like some actionables here. So what, if there's a studio owner or a teacher listening and they're resonating and they're like, yes, okay, where do we start? What are some of the things that we can start to do, today, a week from now, a month from now?
The first thing I would say is, you can do this by yourself, or it's easier with accountability. But you can do all of this by yourself if you want. I would definitely read Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and reconnect to why the fuck you're doing what you're doing. Why do you run a dance studio? Why do you teach? Why are you in the industry? Why are you an adjudicator? Why do you run a competition? Why do you do what you do? And not because it makes money, and not because it brings you happiness, and not because it's what you've always done. There is a deeper underlying purpose behind what you're doing. You want to create safer spaces in the dance industry to impact future generations. You want to create an environment where students can work their butts off, but also simultaneously learn deeper about who they are and what their motivations are in life. Like, what is the why behind what you do? Then I would get really clear on your values. So your why is the purpose underlying what you do. Your how is how you go about it, your values. How do you have conversations? How do you set boundaries? These are the things that are going to be like your northern star. Like, how are you guiding and navigating conversations with families and parents? How are you showing up when you're not feeling great? How are you, whatever it is? And then get clear on your what, which is the thing that's always going to change, the thing that you love to do, the thing that lights you up, whether it's like you're running the studio, but you hate managing people. Then fucking delegate, because no one likes to be managed. No one likes to be managed. So if you don't like managing people and you're managing people, get out. You can still be the owner of the space, because there are so many dance teachers and dance studio owners that love the ownership side of things and the vision and the big picture thinking and the partnerships, but hate managing people. But that's your job. So either delegate it or learn how to manage that, or just like do things that light you up. There are so many dance teachers that say yes out of obligation or fear that they're not going to make money, and then they're not showing up authentically. So just connect. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are your values and how are you doing it? And then what do you actually want to do? The physical thing that you want to actually do, are you doing it, or are you just saying yes out of obligation or no out of fear of not making money or whatever it is? So that's the first thing I would say. Why, how, what? Really clear. If anyone has any questions about that, please just message me on Instagram. I'm super open. I love having conversations in the DMs. I can send you resources. I have a free resource, which is all about discovering your values. I did it with a dance studio yesterday. They felt so empowered when they knew their personal teaching values, which is different from every other staff member. It gives them this sense of clarity and like excitement that now they get to filter everything, every decision they make through these values. The second thing, I would invest in your professional development. look out there as to what is on offer. The trap with dance students, so they're in the coaching industry, in terms of the dance coaching industry, there's a lot of programs out there that will help you grow your studio. My question to you is, how are you able to build your studio if it's built on a foundation of inauthenticity, fear, ego? So I am not saying don't go and look at those, like grow your studio or like get more student coaching programs. I would invest in the coaching that actually supports who you are as a human being. And there are people out there. I've got some really amazing colleagues. If you don't like my vibe, then I can put you onto someone else, because I know I'm a lot. But if you like my vibe, inquire about how I can support you. I have one-on-one coaching, and literally it's like this. We just talk and I listen for the patterns, and I give you, and I mirror back to you what I think is going on. I give you resources. I also have a group coaching program, which brings dance business owners and entrepreneurs together, and we kind of work through things as a group, and everyone gets individual coaching, but there's resources around emotions, patterns, nervous system work, who you want to be, what's getting in the way of that. You know, I just love the inner work, because I think that it's the key to being able to create success. Otherwise, we're just band-aiding everything and like piling on top of everything. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And then to the dancers out there, you know, I mean, really any artist out there that's, you know, maybe not in a traditional track of life, what's some good advice that they could employ if, again, they're kind of hearing your journey and hearing your story, and they're like, you know what, I do have an idea, or I do have this concept, but I just don't know how to, you know, how to make that jump.
Get into community. Find people who also share that sentiment, who can support you, who believe in you, who want to see you win. And not necessarily just your friends or your parents. Like, get into a space where your dreams are held and supported. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say, are you speaking directly to dance? Like, are you saying like find a community of dancers, or are you saying like just find someone?
If you have an idea that you want to manifest, if you have like big dreams, find people that are going to nurture and support those dreams to happen. And they may not be your dance studio owner or your dance teacher. It could be in a coaching space. It could be in a Facebook is kind of toxic as well. I just think like, I think dancers feel like they're alone in that. And I think I just want to remind people that there is community out there to support your dreams and to give you advice. I mean, for any dancer out there like listening to this that has this, please just send me a message on Instagram. Like I will be the person that you can just literally ask. I've got a free Facebook group. You can literally just write your questions in there, and I will be able to answer them until, you know, you start to feel supported. Because when we feel supported, we feel more motivated, and then we go after things that we want. So that's the first thing I would say. Right. The second thing is create a really strong connection with your inner body. Dancers are super, super connected to their physical body. You know, we can do all these crazy things but what I see is like such a disconnection from our energetic and our emotional body. There's a lot of disassociation. There's a lot of judgment towards like what's happening inside. But the inside of our bodies, like our instinct and our intuition, is how we make strong choices and decisions. So I would get really clear on like, I would find a daily practice of mindfulness, of connection with your whatever it is. If you're not religious or you're not spiritual, then just like the part of you that is sure about things, that has clarity, that makes great decisions, that has made great decisions for you in the past, like creating a mindfulness practice daily that is consistent and like disciplined had changed my life. So I would definitely recommend that as well.
Yeah. This is amazing. I mean, I think there's not enough dancers, studio owners, teachers that have, I would say, even know that this type of information is out there. To be frank, and I think I have no clue how it is in Toronto, but I'm in Utah, and it's crazy. It's madness. I mean, it's I teach. My wife teaches at a studio. I teach at a studio, and our studios are about 10 minutes apart, and within 5 minutes of both of those studios, there's probably 7 other studios. And that's consistent throughout the entire state. It's rampant with dance studios, and what you end up with is exactly what would happen in any other industry. Is you end up with good teachers that are spread apart. You end up with students that are spread apart. So now you have budgets spread apart, and now you have, now a studio can really only afford to employ maybe 1 or 2 really strong teachers. And so then what you end up with is a bunch of mid-ground studios that aren't able to really provide a really high level of training or mentorship. And so it's just, I think, and I know there's other states that are similar when we talk about like Arizona or, even like Vegas and Colorado where dance is just, competitive dance is just, it's huge. And dance in general is growing and growing and growing. And I think that it's more so now than ever important for studio owners and teachers to seek out these type of resources so that they can really start to, like you said earlier, change the direction that we're headed.
To add on to that is that conscious dance leadership will also support you in staying in your lane. There's always going to be other things that pop up. Like, you look at any other industry, there's competition everywhere. It doesn't have to be competition with others. Yeah. If you are really connected to the value of your studio, you know why your studio exists. People buy why you do things, not what you do. So there will be families that are connected to your values, that are connected to the stories of your studio owners and your teachers, and people will be drawn to that versus like, what is everyone doing? We have to do the same or we have to do it better. Instead of looking externally, part of conscious dance leadership is coming back to like, why do you do what you do? What makes your studio just so magical? And can you be okay with that being, can that be okay? Like when we just continuously look outside of ourselves, or in this case, look at other dance studios, we get thrown off course versus just staying true to what is true to us, true to our studio, true to your values. And I think, I think there's power in that. Lots of industries have competition. It is what it is. Yeah. And when you reconnect with your values, there's more opportunity for innovation. There's more openness for like curiosity as well. And then you kind of look outside and you think about other things that your studio can provide. There are other partnership opportunities. It's not just like one way. Who the fuck made up the rules? Like break them. You know what I mean? Like dance studios, like there's so much opportunity for like expansion and growth if you're looking at growing your business with partnerships with schools or partnership with other programs or like doing some sort of like event once a term, whatever it is. Like when you stay focused on your values and why you exist and what you're here to do, then there's so much more innovation that can happen, and that's where growth can occur.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to genuinely thank you so much. This conversation has been it's been fantastic for myself. I know that it's going to be amazing for other people to hear, because I think, again, just it's information that needs to be heard, and I don't think I fully even understood, all of what you did and where this conversation would go. And it's amazing. It's amazing. So, where can everybody find everything you've talked about? Where can they find you? What's the easiest place for them to go to?
So I think I'm assuming that you'll share my Instagram handle. So just like click the Instagram. I am who I am. Like what you see is what you get. What you hear is literally who I am online. And you can also find BAM, which is the company for people with disabilities, on my personal, and then you can go to them and have a look at there. And everything from there, there's a reason everything's a little bit messy right now. So you're like, I had no idea who you were. It's like, I know, But once again, going back to the invitation thing, I reached out to you. So when you know what you have to value, like fuck the website, fuck all the, like it doesn't really matter right now. I know that I'm building from the ground up, but I know what I have to offer. So I reached out to you and you said yes, and that's an invitation in itself. So just come on Instagram and be in the space. The next round of my group coaching program, which is called The Conscious Dancer, starts on the 19th of June. I'm looking at a calendar here. 19th of June. So if you want to be a part of it, it's such a vibe. It's such a vibe. I finished my current 8-week program this Friday with my current cohort, and it's just life-changing. And I love it, and they love it. So if you like what you're hearing, then definitely come on in. I have a free masterclass once a month, so that's an entry point to come into my space. I have a free Facebook group that you can come in and ask your questions. The only rule in the Facebook group is that you take 100% responsibility. 100%. No blame, no pointing the finger. You own your fucking shit. And if you've got a situation that is providing challenge or obstacle for you, how did you create that? And then we can move from that space. So I'm so grateful that you had me. I'm so grateful.
I love it. No, this is amazing. And I mean, I know for me, I'm personally I want to reach out and talk to you about some one-on-one coaching, because I think that I think there's a lot of really, really similar things that we have kind of done, and maybe not in the actual application, but in the kind of mindset and the goals that we have. So I absolutely will be reaching out and bugging you more. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed listening.
Thank you. Yes, it was amazing. All right, Ali, thank you so much. This is off. I'll probably just leave it. But I think I'm going to be coming to Canada next year. I got contacted by I think it's like a competition / they do some classes. It's called One, I think. But I'm going to be judging and then teaching a couple classes. But I would love to touch base and coordinate like something in person, and even if it's just coffee or something, to just have an in-person conversation. I would love that.
So, is this off the air? Really?
Amazing.
Are we done?
Amazing.
Okay. Do you coach?
Yeah. I can cut this out. It's not something that I